Okay, I'm Gary Gilbert, 11 Magnolia Ave. I just want to beg your patience for a few minutes. I have a statement to read. About a week ago, I witnessed what I feel was a serious miscarriage of justice when the planning board misused their power in a hearing to divide the Spy Rock Hill property currently under construction into 2 lots. I'll say right up front, I'm not trying to rehear the case here, and I know that the select board has no jurisdiction over the planning board. However, the select board, as managers of our town, are the last place anyone can go for an appeal to fairness. Very importantly, it is the select board that controls the spending of our tax dollars. A lot of people don't like the construction going on in Spy Rock Hill, and it's very understandable and natural that big changes to trees and topography is disturbing. But property owners do have fundamental right to do to their properties what they wish within the law. Last week, the owners were denied their right to split their property into 2 when they, in fact, met all the criteria of something called an A&R, division of land. That law is really simple. If you have enough land and enough lot frontage and you can access the lot, you must be granted an A&R. They have more than enough land, more than enough frontage, and the board denied them, saying they have only illusory access to their lot. Anyone can see that they have plenty of access. This forces them to file an appeal, costing them and equally the town $50,000 to $100,000 in legal fees. That's an amount similar to 1 year's teacher's salary at our school. For me, the tipping point, and why I'm bringing this to your attention, is that the chair of the planning board began the legal proceedings saying that she would not allow discussion of the merits of other A&R plans that have been endorsed by the town. That is a direct quote. She also did not share with the board that our town planner recommended the application be endorsed. Her statement forced the planning board to make a decision without all the facts, denying the applicant their constitutional right of equal treatment under the law. The censorship of directly relevant information is critical because the same planning board just granted an A&R to someone else who had no access to their property across their lot frontage, but were allowed to use the common driveway located elsewhere. Another precedent was some time ago when Bobby Atwater, the former owner of Beach Street Cafe, divided up the land where Moses Hill Road now stands. He proved he had access simply by driving his little Volkswagen across the property boundary, because there was a big, huge hill beyond that. For decades, I've been a steadfast supporter of our town boards and served many years on both the planning board and the zoning boards. But this issue has crossed a serious line for me and is not the way our boards should administer our laws. If laws affecting people's property rights and the value of their land are used as a weapon for some people, then they can be used as a weapon against anyone. Our town is now faced with an expensive lawsuit that they cannot win. I'm here to ask you to take action and request the planning board to invite the applicant to reapply, waiving any further fees, and present all the facts. Alternatively, you could direct our town attorneys to meet sooner rather than later and resolve this issue before the property owners and the town spend more time and money. It's very disheartening to see such an ill-intended and unfair decision occur in a town I've spent years trying to support. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for your presentation.
I'll send you a copy in writing.
Great. And we will add it to the package for the materials meeting. Okay, good. Is there anyone else present or online who would like to make a comment on items not on the agenda? I don't see anyone. If there's someone I've missed, please just unmute and speak out. Otherwise, I will go ahead.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay. The chairman's report. I have received, I believe you have all got a copy of a letter from higher law offices regarding the Manchester Marine moorings. They were under the impression that we were going to talk about them on April 7th. We weren't, and I will ask Debbie to help me write a pleasant letter back to them saying that we had agreed that we would take this item up again in the fall. That's So action items are the next thing that we talk about. Are there any new action items that we should consider, any action items that we need to move?
Not a new one, but one that I think fell off, or maybe it was completed and I didn't notice, but Greg, the signs that the wayfinding team put together and the select board approved last June still have not been installed to the best of my limited knowledge. And I know there was an issue with the cost, but I thought where we left it was we were gonna purchase what we could and then purchase the remaining ones in the fiscal year 26 budget.
I have an update on that.
Oh, great.
They have ordered the signs. They are on order. They are expected to be delivered, I'm not sure, in the next week or two, something like that. But initially, the signs were going to cost the entire sign budget.
Right.
And they found somebody that would make them for about half that cost,
Okay,
like $6,000.
but they did order them finally.
They are ordered,
Good.
and so
Okay.
they are on the road to being put up.
Thank you, because I was gonna have it added to the list if it hadn't been ordered,
Mhm.
but since they've been ordered, I presume they will be installed once they.
Some discussion about reducing the number of redundant signs after the new
Yes.
stylized stuff. What is happening on that, Greg?
I believe the committee was going to follow up and do some recommending what signs to take down.
Yep.
I'm not up to speed on where that stands. I can find out though.
Yep, the Downtown Improvement Committee is meeting tomorrow. It's that committee that was supposed to do that, so
Yes.
I would be happy to ask them for you, Greg.
Okay, so I will take that off of your plate, Greg, and Kathy.
Just put it on the action item list though, so we don't forget about it.
Yeah.
Just in case no one's noticed it, because no one parks up there, the kind of sort of, you'll notice that they've started outlining for the parking spots out on Central Street. Now it's just a matter of, so they did some laying out, trying to figure out.
Right here?
Yeah. And, how many spots they can get in with the, so according to Chuck, that'll probably be done in the next couple of days, but they did do the engineering as far as finding out where the spots would go. The chance you're not parked in one of the spots, probably straddled over one.
Well, it affects you more than anyone else in this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what we needed to do on action items. Next item on our agenda is to approve and sign the Mason Building Purchase and Sale Agreement. We have agreed that we will meet, Friday morning at 8:45 to do that, because there are still some details that need to be ironed out. And the next item is to approve and sign the new town administrator contract with Antonio Barletta. We have discussed that in executive session and agreed that the contract would be a benefit to him and to us. And I would like to have a motion.
I can make that motion. I move that the select board approve the town administrator and Antonio Barletta's contract beginning on July 1st, 2025, and run through June 30th, 2028.
Second.
Is there further discussion? John?
Yes.
Anne says yes. Kathy?
Yes,
Brian?
Yes.
And Jeff?
Yes.
So we need to remember to sign that before we leave.
I'm practicing all night.
I have it.
You have it. Okay. The next item is Tommy Moore, who I believe is here. And you've applied for the zoning board of appeals as an alternate, I believe. We've seen your application, which shows that you have enthusiasm and experience. Would you explain to us how you came to decide that that's what you wanted to do and what you bring to the position?
Sure. So I moved to Manchester almost 3 years ago. Totally love the community and really wanted to start to be more involved. I also have the time because I don't think the word retire, but at the end of May I'm retiring, so I will have the time and the ability to actually volunteer. I think based on my experience, I've owned my own company, I've had a real estate broker's license, I've had a construction supervisor's license, I've renovated properties both in Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And it just seemed like a good fit for the skill set that I had. And it sounded like a committee that I felt like I was capable of, and I had the skills to be able to contribute. That would be the reason why.
Thank you. John, do you have?
Colleen, really, it's wonderful that you've raised your hand to do this with only being here in town 3 years. I guess you've spent a lot of time in front of zoning boards.
I've had some experience, yes.
Yes, with your background, and so that's great when you can bring a strong background to this. And you're retiring in May, so time is not so much an issue. Have you participated in public service before? Or is this your first foray?
This would actually be the first. I've raised kids, I've owned my own company, done all of that, which kept me really busy. So I now feel like I have the time and the interest to participate. So it's more about now I finally have time.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I thank you. I mean, all of us are participants in that way, and we're all glad we did it. I'm speaking for everybody.
Most days.
So, good.
Speak for myself. Sometimes too much.
No,
So
I just
thank
wanna, your credentials are excellent and a perfect fit for that committee, so I just want to thank you very much for stepping up,
Thank you.
really.
Appreciate it. Look forward to it.
Brian?
You sound more articulate than I remember.
I know, it's because it wasn't a.
No, I've known Colleen for since she moved.
Okay.
So I think this is a great opportunity for the town and for.
And you have some experience with that committee?
Yes, I do. I spent some time on the old zoning board.
Yep. Any-
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Ready to go, so thank you for
Thank you.
raising your hand.
Is there a motion?
Yes, I move that the select board appoint Colleen Moore as the second alternate member to the zoning board of appeals for a term to expire on June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Ready to do? John?
Yes.
Jan says yes. Kathy?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And Jeff?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you very much.
So that wasn't
Thank you,
painful.
Colleen.
It
Okay.
wasn't that painful. I'll stop shaking.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
See you later, Colleen.
Okay, the next, up is the quarterly review of the fire chief.
Good evening.
Good evening, we have your report in front of us, also headed by email, so.
So we had a busy first quarter. We're actually a little bit ahead on emergency responses than we were this time last year. We've had a great opportunity because of different grants to do a lot of training, staff development, both at the command level as well as the firefighter level, and that's still ongoing probably through the end of this calendar year. That grant will last. I did kind of not knowing what's going on just south of us. I did submit for our FEMA reimbursement for what we've done thus far. Typically, we do the reimbursements all at the end. I just want to make sure those reimbursements are actually going to show up in our bank account before we spend all of it. So we'll be doing quarterly reimbursement instead of one big lump sum, just to make sure that we see that money coming in to offset it. We did have one firefighter resign in March, and then one call firefighter applied for the full-time position, already certified, already a paramedic. So firefighter Sakala did a week of days, and he's on shift already. So it's a good transition and succession planning, which obviously works out well budgetary-wise for us as well. Equipment updates, everything, knock on wood, is going well. We did get a Mass Department of Fire Services grant, and we were able to get a slide-in unit for the back of our UTV that we can take into the woods. Hopefully we won't have to use it as much as we did last year, but it's not starting out very well. So all the equipment's going well. We're expecting the new ambulance Q1 of 2026. And we were also awarded recently a student education grant, which allows our firefighters who are trained in the SAFE program to go into the school systems. It's a joint grant with Essex. So we go into all the schools and we try to get kindergarten through third, and we go into each grade quarterly. So we can do that. We also got senior SAFE money, which we utilized last year for our lockbox program, which was a big hit, and we still have people that had signed up for them, and they were on a waiting list. So once that's executed on the state side, we will try to go through that list and then promote it for any boxes that we have left. Again, that's a regional grant between Manchester. Budgetary-wise, we're right on target. We're 81% through the year as of today, and we're 78% expended on our salary budget and 77% expended on our operating. We're right on track.
John?
Yeah, okay. Well, great. I've read the reports, Chief, and they're very complete. And in fact, all of us appreciate the fact that you've got regular reports that keep us up to date on all of that.
The monthly reports are great.
Yeah. So things are running very, very smoothly from all aspects, budget-wise, staff, et cetera. I did notice that there is some turnover in the staff now. Is that going to affect your budget projections? Because now you're out probably looking for replacement people, and depending upon who you find.
Yeah, so
They
we're,
cost some money.
currently we're full, on the full-time side, we have one person out, long-term injury. I expect probably in the fall that he'll be coming back. But our staffing mechanism, there's 4 firefighters assigned to
Right.
every group, and we're able to drop to 3 without incurring overtime, so that's worked out very well. And with the call firefighter positions, we have the applications open until Friday, March 2nd. We've had 5 applications already, because as Phil Sakala moved up, that opened up a position on the call department. We do have 1 firefighter that we anticipate will be leaving us to go to another department. And we have some applications already in to create a hiring list for the next 2 years, just to be a little bit more proactive. And we do have some certified firefighter paramedics on that list as well. So the forecast looks good in the current one.
Okay, so the budget looks stable in terms of how that's going to work out. Great. I think you're doing an excellent job.
Yeah, I will echo that. I like everything about the training and the proactive approach to the hiring. I saw the postings, on the social media for that. I think that's an excellent idea. So thank you for doing that. I had a question around the brush fire risk, because we already had one on 128 not too many weeks ago.
Yep.
And we were asked, at our last meeting to declare a drought and tell everybody to stop watering.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to get your perspective on 2 things. Well, actually, one thing in particular. When we stop watering, right, that must elevate the risk for brush fires, I would assume, or not
Not
necessarily?
necessarily, because
Okay.
what we're watering typically is not a high hazard. It's our grasses. We're not, if we were watering our wood lines around our houses, then that would add a little bit of mitigation, but typically people are just watering stuff
Okay.
that looks nice, and
That's-
it's usually low lying, so it doesn't create
That's good to know. Then my second question is, you talk a lot about prevention, and what I've heard you talk about is prevention more around structure fires.
Yep.
I'm wondering if there's any partnership with like MECT or some of the nonprofits that take care of our wilderness areas to make sure they are maintaining those areas properly so it minimizes our brush fire risk, because the powder house stuff is right in the center of town, and
So we did, last year we participated in the Cape Ann Regional Forest Fire assessment As part of that, we came up with kind of the areas of highest risk based upon growth, how it interacts with civilian life and the density around that. What we've been doing, and we're gonna start doing, now the springtime is here, our crews are actually gonna go out and, 20 years ago when I was here, we used to be able to drive a truck around most of these trails for access. A lot of them are overgrown.
Right.
So we're gonna go out, identify the biggest risks and try to mitigate those either with the property owners, sometimes the conservation will help us, and I want to say green belts.
It's MECT.
Yes,
MECT.
thank you.
MECT
And they're
trustees.
proactive, so they've been, we just had emails going around a couple weeks ago about gate access.
Okay,
Make sure that we have easy access through the gates and things like that. So the conversation's ongoing, and fluid.
okay, thank you.
The powerhouse is interesting because it's town land.
It's town land and yeah, but I thought MECT was MECT is not responsible for maintaining that?
I think they own maybe one
They-
tract of that.
They only one okay.
But the majority of that
Is
is.
town.
So then who in our town, because is it DPW or what, like,
I haven't gotten into that, to be completely honest with you. I know the last time we did the trails last year, they were pretty open. There was a couple things that if there's small branches here and there, our crews will handle it.
yeah, but there are a couple of big trees that fell down.
Yeah.
Those are the trails I walk, obviously.
Okay.
So, and, they were there for long periods of time and just wasn't clear who was maintaining it. Yeah,
So I will check into that. I believe
Okay.
it's the DPW, but I'm not
Okay.
sure.
I'm
Used
sure
to
it's the DPW that would take care of it, but
I'm not sure who's
perhaps
responsible.
they have less of an eye to what is a risk.
Yes.
That's a good way of,
Yeah, it used to be volunteers years ago, but
Mhm.
that was a long time ago.
thank you.
Mhm.
Nothing.
I'm good, thank you. Everything looks good and appreciate your work.
Yeah, just, I know Todd and I mention it every time we meet with you, but the cooperation between all the town departments is great. Last weekend, we did an active shooter drill with the police department. We had Essex Police and Fire, Rockport Police and Fire, and Hamilton Police and Fire. So the training and the collaboration, not just between Manchester, but our neighbors, pretty impressive, so.
To that point, I like to think, I could be wrong, that our public safety would be the envy of any small town.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think, we've set a pretty high standard, now you guys gotta keep to it.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, the
No, I'm
staff,
serious, the
the
cooperation-
staff in both the police and fire, they're.
in Harbor, I mean, it's even DPW, every town department that's the face of the town interacts very well with each other. And it's obvious, and I think that, you all.
And it's not just on the surface, it's
Yeah, no.
truly, it's deep rooted, I could call Chuck at, 2:00 in the morning, I have a problem, it would be fixed.
Yeah,
Right,
no,
so
and
those types of
it doesn't go unnoticed by this board.
Absolutely.
That's for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, you
Okay.
passed.
Great. Good for another 3 months.
Yeah, even 3 months. It's like a parole board.
Okay, the next item, is the town administrator in transition. It's under quarterly reviews, but maybe, Greg, you would share your thoughts?
I'm sure, happy to. So obviously, the last few months have been focused on wrapping up budgets and getting everything ready for the annual town meeting, as well as a fair amount of work getting the Mason PNS and other documents across the finish line. We're awfully close, and hopefully we'll get there in another couple of days. So looking ahead, rapidly approaching the end of June, it seems. It seems like as we get closer, the time accelerates. So really wanted to focus and hear from you what you would like to see as part of that transition. Obviously, I'll be working with the department heads, and I'm sitting down with them over the next 2 weeks here, just identifying where their significant projects are and what we can finish up before Tony comes on board. And then I'll be preparing information and putting together materials for Tony to pass the baton on to him as he takes over the projects that will still be ongoing. But if you have any particular concerns or want to flag particular issues, I'd love to hear from you on that as we prepare to make the transition as smooth as possible.
Jeff?
I think the biggest thing is just setting up a good roadmap for Tony to look at where we've been and where we're going and all that, so that's the most important thing at this point.
Not just what each department wants, but some sort of a progression and.
Yeah, right, which I think we kind of have, but
Mhm.
maybe just some of Greg's side of it so Tony can work moving forward.
Brian, have you heard anything?
No, I'm trying to get the, select everything squared away for the meeting on Monday and Friday morning,
Okay,
so I apologize.
that's fine. But do you have anything that
No,
you'd like to?
no, I think that everything I've heard, it should be a very smooth transition, and Greg said he would make himself available. You know, so I think that I'm looking forward to. I think it's going to be my opinion, my impression, based on what I know about Tony, which is very little, what I've heard and in this conversation with Greg. It should be as seamless as possible. And I don't think we're going to go into. I don't see any profile problem.
So, yeah, usually these transitions are smooth when the person who is departing leaves behind a very strong team. And I think Greg is leaving behind an extremely strong team, set of department heads. And they will ensure more than anything that the transition is smooth because they're going to keep doing their jobs well. I would say, I think it's important to help Tony. I think he's going to want to get to know people, right? So Greg, to the extent you can, there are things that you do that we don't see, right? And so and that the residents don't see either. Who are your go-to people? They might be people outside of town that Tony needs to work with. So I mean, certainly I hope you're preparing a list of people he needs to get to know, right? To help him be successful. As far as the projects go, like I said, I think that the department heads have that all well in hand. But certainly the culvert project getting started not long after Tony arrives is probably my biggest not worry bead, but we want to make sure that gets off to a really great start. And I think around the time he arrives, or hopefully before then, we should be able to be communicating to the residents about that project. So I think it's a good test case, if you will, for maybe public outreach. The more you can get him up to speed on that particular project, I think the more, because he's going to get asked about it. He's going to want to go out and meet residents and meet people, and everybody's going to be asking him about it. So I would think that's a critical thing to get him up to speed on. And also, during the summer, when he arrives, we should be actively working the school budget issue for next year. Whatever happens this year is going to happen. But we can't wait until the summer's over to start talking about the school budget for next year. We need to be working it now. So I would like to see some information flow and engagement there. Those are the two big things that come to my mind.
The culvert project. What is this is not directly about Tony, but this is something that he's going to need to deal with. What happens if the BRIC grant goes away? How can we prepare?
So, plan B for that, B and C. One will be to talk to our state folks and see if there are any other grants that we can apply for, and see we're doing that now. to see if we can position ourselves. The other fallback, though, is having a special town meeting and bonding for that project. If that money is called back, the project has to happen. We don't have a choice. So we will, I think plan C is to seek voter approval for a bond to replace those dollars.
That's, okay. John?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is the reorganization. When is that officially kind of fit together, Greg? Is that really dependent upon, obviously, the vote at town meeting? And is that going to be official like July 1? Or is it kind of semi-official now?
Well, some of the work is getting ready now in terms of for example, getting a new job description written for the new accounting clerk and working on job descriptions for the department facilitators, who are those clusters, those department clusters, and having one of the department head being responsible for the cluster. So we're working on some job descriptions now, but it will be up to Tony to implement those because it does start in the new fiscal year.
Okay, well, I just bring that up. I think there has to be a sensitivity with regard to that. Different people, the team you've got is very strong, as Kathy had mentioned, rearranging things a little bit, and there may be some expectations. People aren't sure what they're, exactly who they're going to say, what they're going to say to who, when, and how. Things will move around a little bit, and he should be aware of that. You're certainly got a much better feel for how it's going to fit together, but he needs to be oriented to that. The other thing, I know that Tony is going to be here for a few days at least prior to your departure, but certainly I think high on the list is how much interaction are you going to need with him after July 1? I know that you're flexible on that, and you've got to get a feel for that and perhaps schedule some time that you can talk and discuss how things are going to work out going forward.
My guess is that we'll know a lot more after Tony has been
Yes.
here visiting for a week, and
I think that's typically something the new leader would
But
drive.
it's between really the two of them to figure out what's going to work.
are you planning
Yeah,
any?
I'm fine with that. I'll take Tony's lead and what he would like. I'm flexible.
Yep.
Are you planning any long trips immediately after you leave?
Not extra long, no.
Okay.
Anything else on transition or? Great. So we go to the town meeting preview. I will be making some remarks at the beginning, recognizing that we're losing two major forces in the town. Maybe their last town meeting, maybe not. Probably, it's almost certainly in the case of Greg, because I don't think, even if the school vote fails on May 12th, I don't think we can get another town meeting in before July 1st. And
I would just comment that let's focus the town meeting for Al.
yes, of course. Okay, Article 1 is the reports. That should go very smoothly. Article 2 is the salaries. Usually gets a laugh and not much else.
Can't spend a laugh.
Right. Actually, you pretty much can't. You bank it as goodwill, I hope. The Article 3 is the North Shore Agricultural and Technical School. Jeff, you're going to move it, are you going to speak?
Only if somebody
Okay,
has a question, but, I mean, I'll be prepared, but.
um, and then the operational budget is Article 4. And I think Sarah will talk about any questions. Yeah, Sarah or Greg will handle any questions on that. Do you anticipate anything, Greg?
No, not in particular. I mean, there may be a question or two. We highlighted in the report the staffing, the junior accounting clerk and boosting the full-time, the clerk in the town clerk's office. But other than that, I really don't expect a lot of questions.
The notices have said bring your finance committee report with you. We only got one per household. Are there going to be a few copies or some copies at the meeting?
Yes, yeah, do.
Right. Article 5. Greg, where do you anticipate questions?
There may be questions about the rotunda and its funding. We have a bigger number in there because the one grant that we had hoped we're not very optimistic for, so we wanted to backfill that. There's a bigger number for paving than we normally have seen. Again, there may be some questions regarding that. And then I do want to point out that included in the article is the capital exclusion, so $660,000 as part of the DPW facility planning. And so in the motion, that will be highlighted, and that it is dependent on a ballot approval. So there'll be a capital exclusion ballot question come May 20th.
Anyone else? Has anyone else heard any discussion of the capital?
I expect questions on the line item 13. The renovations for the senior center. I think it would have been nice if we could have labeled it in hindsight, building renovations, because part of it is for the town offices in that building, not just for the senior center. So in hindsight, it would have been nice to label it that way.
Okay. Is that something that we could ask Sarah Melish to include it in her remarks as when she moves this?
I'm not sure, I don't know that she needs to talk about it, but be prepared
Yeah,
to talk
prepared to
about
answer
it,
it if
if
it
there are
comes up.
questions.
I think it was asked on social media once, and we
Okay.
addressed that already, so
Okay.
not chicken.
Yeah, the only questions I've heard is people talking about rotunda.
Yeah. Okay. And Article 6 is going to be handled by the school committee and the school superintendent. Good.
Yes.
There don't seem to be any seconders for any of the zoning articles.
Yeah, I'm assuming that Alan is working that out with Sarah
Okay,
Creighton.
right.
You
It's,
remember the ZBA?
Hmm?
You remember the ZBA?
right. I don't think we have much to say about any of the zoning stuff.
No.
No,
Where do we want it?
Which brings us to Article 14, which, John?
Water, yeah. That's a moving target, isn't it, Greg?
A little bit, it is, and I apologize for that. So we
Okay.
have, so the motion that you have before you in the packet, we will not be moving the last paragraph there that talks about watering 1 day a week.
Hmm.
So that was,
This
the
is
moderator felt that,
in the warrant?
not in the warrant, in the motion.
In the motion, okay, yes.
In the motion, that's, I think that was in the packet, yes?
Yes.
Yep.
16, bottom of page 16, top of page 17. The pen.
So that, yeah, that paragraph that suggested adding language about one of the options for a restriction being watering just 1 day a week. It's something that the state would like to see in our bylaw. Alan felt that, given the wording of the original article, that was beyond the scope of that original language. So we'll have to take that up at another meeting.
Okay, so, I mean, there are some changes that are going to be made to the article, actually, the article in our bylaws. Do we still create a handout for people to pick up? Because the bylaw article is not long.
Right. Alan felt it would be fine just to have that up on the screen, and Tiffany will have the wording
Okay.
of those two additions. So they're two relatively easy inserts that are being proposed in addition to.
I think there is supply in two places. We had spoken about the second place. And then, of course, the non-essential outdoor water use.
Right.
So those are three places.
Those three things can be highlighted on the screen.
Fine.
Alan thought that would be simple enough and reduce the amount of paper people are trying to juggle in the seats.
I agree. Okay, so I'm prepared to make some comments into that regard because, of course, what they have in their warrant is not reflective of what we're going to be voting on exactly.
Right. It is a change from what they have in the booklet.
Yes. Okay. So I'll make some comments within Alan's time frame of 2 minutes.
Mhm.
Correct.
Anything else? Then there's Article 15, which is the CPC. And I suspect there will be some questions about the Affordable Housing Trust. And they've had two articles in Cricket recently explaining first what is affordable housing and then why it isn't easy to get to the SHI and protection from 40B housing. But I'm not sure that everybody will have read those, and I think a lot of people wonder why we're giving. Who is going to answer those questions?
Sounds like nothing.
I think the Affordable Housing Trust people will be addressing that. I think both Muffin and John Feuerbach are prepared to do that.
Is there a hand raise?
And
Yes.
it looks like Jack Burke has his
Yes.
hand up.
Good evening, everybody. Either John Furback or Chris Olney will speak to that.
Okay, thank you very
Okay.
much.
You're welcome.
Um, All right. OPEB should be pretty straightforward, 16.
The good news there is we have 2.5 years left. We are ahead of schedule. And that,
Let's see what the
that
stock
seems like
market
a-
does.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was gonna qualify that to see what happens with the stock market here, but nonetheless, with any luck, it'll be fully funded ahead of schedule.
Okay. Article 17, which is a property tax break for certain veterans. Any problems there?
And again, the assessors are prepared to answer questions that people may have.
Revolving funds. And Greg, I think you have explained this any number of times, if anyone asks.
Yeah, happy to step in.
Article 19, which is trying to rein in the Board of Health.
That right?
I'll be speaking to that, and I'll send you, comments after, if you use the smart.
More politically correct.
What does that mean? I don't know what politically correct means.
She has a filter.
Okay.
Tone down some of my language.
And Article 20 is poisoning eagles, or rather not poisoning eagles. And I will speak to that. And 21 is being withdrawn by the petitioner, and I may take a minute and a half to explain what the intention was and why it's being withdrawn. And 22, I think we will pass over.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else on the?
Yes,
on
just
the-
one thing. So Greg, I know that Alan is responsible for the town meeting. However, you are responsible for the DPW. And at one point, we had the logistics corrected where when we're sitting up on the stage, we didn't have to worry about backing up our seats and falling off the back. Somehow we lost that recipe, and I will tell you, I will not sit on that stage again unless it is safe.
Okay, you can
So
say.
they need to make sure we can pull our chairs back when we stand safely and not have to worry about that.
You don't want to
Please
sit on
make
the
sure.
cliff.
Yeah, not interested. So somehow we lost the recipe for the fall meeting. I really don't want to repeat that this spring.
Well, we're in two different locations too.
Yeah. But
Good
still,
location.
they know what the requirement is, safety. And that was an unsafe situation. So please make sure that's handled.
If you fall, be Kathy by the seat.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I won't sit on the stage. Thank you, appreciate it.
Is the separate voting computer configured?
Yes, I believe so. I
Okay,
know that they were working on that this past Friday, and I believe they got it all done. I'll double check, but I know they got all the clickers scanned in and verified working. I believe they got the computer all set up, but I'll double check.
okay, because I guess we could continue to work with Tiffany's computer if we have to, but at some point it would be nice to have two computers that are prepared to run the Turning Point or whatever they call themselves, software, so we, because going back cards and counts and it's just,
It should be just dedicated, right?
there should be two, I believe that we have purchased two computers which are
Correct.
intended to be, yes, dedicated to that.
Thanks.
And if, God forbid, we have to have two rooms again sometime.
Good.
Right, okay. Anything else on the town meeting? Liaison updates. Joan.
Yes, I already mentioned the DPW situation with the signs. They will start installing new meters, and they do have a first tranche of the new meters in town here, and they're going to be putting them into the public buildings, starting, I think, probably next week or the 1st of May. And then broad distribution or broad installation at the residential level will probably start in about 1.5 to 2 months or so, something like that. They're still settling on a contractor to do that.
So, I'm sorry, question on that. So when do they plan to communicate with people? Because you just can't walk into somebody's house and change the meter. So what is the communication plan
Yeah.
for the residents?
I don't think they are quite that far yet because they haven't settled on a group who is going to install that. But the group that does, the contractor knows that's a pretty critical part of their job right out of the chute. Because I think we have discussed that before. So the contracting group is going to be dealing with that.
Right, so DPW is talking to Tiffany and getting some materials prepared. And once we have a contractor selected, we'll be doing the actual install. Tiffany will be working closely with them and getting out communications to people ahead of time and getting schedules. So there'll have to be scheduling times for these to happen.
Thank you.
So initially, they're going to do the public buildings, and then they're also going to do the meters that were part of the pilot program. All those people are aware what was going on because people went into their houses and put in the pilot meters. So those are getting swapped out for the actual meters that will be used, and then the contractor will be kicking in. So, Council on Aging, it's all about the Masons purchase and sale. That's all. That's the only topic there. We've talked about that. The Historic District Commission had a meeting last week. It was kind of interesting. I've been on that commission for a number of years. I'll say probably 8. This is the first certificate of hardship. And usually there's certificates of appropriateness that get issued for whatever the projects are, for whatever the people are doing. And it was the first hardship certificate that the committee had issued, and it all had to do with a house that was on the subsidized housing list. And when you're on the subsidized housing list, you have the opportunity to take advantage of various funding opportunities, one of which is windows. And they had the opportunity to have all new windows in their house, which of course were triple pane, very efficient windows, but I won't say they're exactly fitting with regard to the Historic District Commission requirements. And, you know, the homeowner came before us and said, well, what can you do for me? And we came up with some sort of an appropriate settlement with regard to putting up appropriate mullions, because really most of the houses are 1850 to 1900. They're 6 over 6, and the windows that were being provided had no panes. I mean, just a single pane, which wasn't necessarily appropriate. So that'll work out. I've gone to Mark, and I was just curious, how many other houses in the historic district are on SHI? Because there are others that might ask about that. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, they can't, because of the way the windows are constructed. Can't make them true divided lights.
No, True Divided Lights
They
has
can't
middle,
put them- I don't think they can even put them inside the,
that was the
Between
key.
two.
between the two, they have to be snap-on either front and back.
And they can make them permanent, but they can't make them inside the panes, which is what we insist for a regular applicant. So we had to kind of
The gas that's in there is what,
skip over that, but I mean, I'm sure there are other houses. I don't think there are a lot in the district, but there are probably some others who may be coming to us. I don't know.
it's all paid through National Grid, right? I think,
I don't know.
yeah, Action Inc. Has a
PSA?
deal.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
it's
through Action.
It's Action Inc. And what happens is,
Action Inc.
we all pay
Yes.
for it.
I think it was Action Inc.
Take a look at the bottom of your utility bill.
Mhm.
There's
That's
a-
Mass Save.
But there's a line item, and that goes into a big pot. And then it just, for anything that's affordable.
Right. So, that's it for me.
Downtown improvement meets tomorrow mornings, and like in Federal.
Parks and Rec, they're ramping up for the summer. The 4th of July committee, the parachuters are coming back,
Oh, super.
and that's, I think that's about all the news that's fit to print.
Good.
Yeah,
Wait a minute,
nothing
what
at the
about dogs
minute,
and all
so-
over on the beach, so
Pardon?
all,
Dogs are off the beach.
dogs are off the beach and all is quiet?
Yeah, pickleball, I haven't heard, other than the initial one incident prior to someone getting on the courts earlier than the, season. I haven't heard anything. Not to
There
say,
was- I noticed a big flurry of minutes coming out of,
probably, yes, there was a request. There was, a Freedom of Information
just
Act.
something that we might think about in the future is, since Debbie has had a very successful experiment with AI, transforming a recording into a summary, making it easier for
They actually-
committees that don't have professional minute takers.
Yeah, those are, I mean, the woman that who takes the, she's a volunteer,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
she's scribbling, but the discussion did come up at the meeting last week,
Mhm.
and I think the cost was, I don't know what the costs are to
For the AI,
the AI.
we upped it, so we can cover the Parks and Rec now.
But we need to get a recording,
Right, they need to record their meeting.
so
Which
can that be
if they're
done? in-
recorded, then why?
will.
Yeah,
That takes
they
care
can
of the
just be
information.
recorded in the
Right.
Zoom cloud, so.
So so that was discussed because of the request,
Mhm.
and I don't know how.
But the
far back.
Zoom, it is is it a hybrid meeting?
Yes,
Okay, so you have the
Right.
capability of
yeah,
recording.
and so
Yeah.
at some point Cheryl will figure this out, we'll figure it out.
That's easy.
'Cause
Yeah, you can
Makes
upload
sense.
the
it's an
Zoom
awful lot of
recording.
work for.
I mean, I don't know
big
what the
time
other,
saver.
I don't know what the other, we were talking about levels of committees,
Yeah,
The, the primary ones would be select board and planning board.
and finance.
And secondary might be ZBA, and maybe that's, and Concom. And then tertiary would be the Parks and
Board
Rec.
of Health.
would be-
Don't forget Board of Health.
Yeah,
Yeah, the ones that have quasi judicial.
yeah, so that was the discussion.
Yeah, we can do 15 meetings a month. So,
That'll be helpful.
Yeah,
I got nothing. So.
okay. The school committee had a public hearing at, I think, 5 before their 6 o'clock meeting. And there were 2 people there whose names I did not know, and whose names and faces were. So, there certainly are people in the community who are out arguing for the school budget. We'll just have to see how that comes out. Just see. any interest. Um, they- there's reason to worry about the school budget, and in particular, the override in Essex. But that, we're just,
Just it occurred to me, Parks and Rec, they also have started looking at reconfiguring Sweeney Park.
Ah.
Drainage, some of the costs associated with and putting a full-size, enabling a full-size soccer field there. So that's in the preliminary stages of discussion.
Mhm.
Have to, it can't be, it has to be a turf, it has to be real grass
yes,
as opposed to a turf field in order to qualify for CPC funding.
right.
And so that's, and now they're just trying to figure out where the sun's going to be in the batter's eye.
Okay.
So that's an ongoing, that's something that Nate's been working with Parks and Rec on.
Okay, consent agenda. Which is the meeting minutes and the Little League Parade. I'm sure it's here somewhere. But they're moved to,
I move that board approve the consent agenda items.
Second.
Yes.
John says yes, Ann says yes, Kathy, Brian,
Yes.
and Jeff.
Yes.
Okay, town administrator's report.
All right, so, yeah, in your packet, there's a new declaration from the state lowering the drought to stage 2. Again, I don't think there's any action needed at this point, given your conversation last time, but I did want to highlight that for you. If we get as much rain as they are predicting for this coming weekend, maybe stage 2 can go away.
Are there specific restrictions for stage 1 and stage 2? We've discussed the restrictions for stage 3.
So under stage 2, you can allow for outdoor watering by hand and by drip.
But
that is
not
something like this,
sprinklers.
but not sprinklers, correct.
So
Is
Should we-
stage, excuse me, is stage 2 the same as level 2? Are stage and level
Yeah,
I'm
interchangeable?
sorry.
Yes, I do interchange there.
Okay, fine, I see in the documents level, it's always a little confusing to me. Sorry.
Right, level. Should we somewhere announce what the restrictions are for level 1 and level 2, in addition to having a bylaw about level 3?
So we talked about having a pretty simplified graphic that explains what's allowed under each of the different levels. And I know that Tiffany has that, well, she has it completed, but I know that she was working on it.
Since we are now in a level 2, should we let people know now what they're allowed to do and not?
From an informational point of view, we certainly can. My sense was you didn't want to formally declare it, just based on your last meeting conversation.
Okay,
But happy to, either way, we can, if you want to declare that, you certainly can.
I'm not, I was not aware that there were 3 levels of drought. And I was not aware that there were different restrictions at each level. I had been kind of
So why
on
don't, for next
binary.
meeting, why don't we Yeah, why don't we prepare that for you for your next meeting, so that you can see what the differences are between the different levels. So then you'll have that, and then you can also get that posted. And that'll, I think, help people understand what the levels mean and what they can and cannot do.
Right, so I mean, I think we didn't feel the need to take any formal action because our water reservoirs were fine and they're still fine, correct?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
so it's still probably helpful information, because for example, I just saw in the news, I thought it was today, I thought we were in a dry stage as opposed to I thought we were in a mild drought, so the weather people report it a certain way, that, I don't know if that's different than what the state is reporting, but when you see something like that, there is nothing to tell you, to do anything differently, so just the town presenting Tiffany's information matter-of-factly on its, social media platforms, et cetera, I think would be appropriate without us taking any action.
So yes, why don't we work on that, get that out to everybody?
And when we go to stage 3, what we should do, put a page on the Hancock building. And
Put the
have
lights
the
up.
blue light flashing during the summer. The blue light's flashing during stage 3 drought.
There you go.
Right, and only golf courses can.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg, wrap
No,
up.
that's fine, no problem. So moving on, getting the SHI or subsidized housing inventory list updated. Long struggle here. The fundamental problem with the apartment complex, Powerhouse Hill apartment complex, is when the CDC went through the process. They did that prior to having it approved from the state. And so there's a question about the completeness of the lottery system that they use, and that they have people that were renting who went through a lottery system prior to the state approving. So the state is trying to do it retroactively. They keep coming back with more and more questions every time. And so we keep providing more information. It's not our information, it's from the CDC. So there's been a lot of back and forth. They are doing a final round of reviews now. I don't know if they will sign off on the process that was followed. They may require that the lottery process that was developed be modified, and that it be used going forward, and that it'll have to be on a tenant by tenant basis as the units turn over before they get officially added to the SHI. I'm hopeful that we won't have to do that, because that's disappointing to be waiting this long, but that may be the case. So it's still under review. Mark Resnick is in pretty constant contact with them the last few weeks here, and will continue to do so until we get a final resolution. So I know that's been frustrating for people, and that's the update I can provide.
Thank you. Anything else?
Any questions on that? I'm sorry.
I'm good.
Moving on, I commented a little earlier on the culvert. The FEMA funding through their what's called the BRIC program, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, is what BRIC stands for. So FEMA has announced the program is no longer going forward. They have ended the program. They announced that projects that the monies have been obligated to the states, and so it goes through FEMA to MEMA to the municipalities. So the funding that we were awarded has been obligated to the state. So we thought we were in the clear. There was a new missive from FEMA came out this past Thursday that said if the project isn't actually under contract with the construction company doing the work, then it may be called back. So we're trying to get clarification on that, been reaching out to our congressional delegation to see what help they can provide. The state has also been very helpful in trying to track things down, but we don't have a definite word yet. So we will continue to work on that to see if we can make sure we can secure and maintain, hold on to those funds. It's about $4.5 million that's at risk here. So it's obviously a big chunk of money for us and will be very important to try to secure it so that we can proceed with the project as scheduled. So again, I need to say stay tuned and we'll continue to fight hard for those dollars.
Greg, where are we in putting it out to bid?
Yeah, that's being prepared, and we're still waiting for a couple of permits, but I told them to go ahead without those final permits at hand. We can always do an addendum to the bid documents if there are some new conditions that the permits impose. So that is in the works now, and we hope to get it out on the street in fairly short order.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Then my last note here is on the moorings and doing an audit of the transactions. Got a very high estimate of cost from our auditing firm to do this work, really prohibitively expensive. And so we need another game plan, whether or not we try to use perhaps the committee, the Harbor Advisory Committee and yourselves, or use some in-house staff time to do that review. So I might suggest that a couple of you work with me to come up with a game plan going forward so that we can have a good resolution to the questions that were raised and making sure we have a good process in place going forward. The emotions are continuing to run pretty high, at least the couple of individuals. And so I do suggest that if one or two of you could work with me in putting a game plan together, that we work on that in the next couple of weeks. So I would welcome maybe a couple of you to help with that.
I'll work with you, Greg.
I'll do it, so I'll work with it. That'll work.
That'd be great.
No, I have it first thing in the morning, or late enough.
Thank you.
All your time's committed.
Thank you.
So we'll put together a game plan and get back to folks.
Sounds good.
Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Ah.
Yeah.